Hello and welcome to the Everyday Adventure podcast. My name is Nicki and I will be bringing you thoughts, ideas and stories from some incredible guests to hopefully inspire you to live more adventurously in your everyday lives. So today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Aleema Noormohamed to the show. Aleema is a mindfulness and grief coach who helps people to let go of negative emotions and beliefs that are holding them back. She's also a passionate advocate for nature and the outdoors, and she frequently takes her clients to work outside in the beautiful Kenyan outback and countryside where she lives. And it has to be said, I'm incredibly jealous of some of the photos I've seen her post on social media with her out wandering around these beautiful waterfalls. And we've had a couple of conversations where I've gone, well, my pictures of the outdoors usually in the local park, which is full of mud and dogs, and Aleema's here beside this stunning backdrop. But so I've been living vicariously through her. But Aleema and I met when we both spoke at TEDx Moseley back in January, and I immediately connected with Aleema and with the message I think she was trying to share around how being in nature, being in the outdoors, but also finding peace and space through mindfulness has really helped her through some difficult and challenging times in her life. But not to mention, she's incredibly engaging and lively and brings such a passionate voice to helping people connect with that part of themselves that they often keep buried. And so I really wanted to speak to Aleema and explore that further with her, to think about, I guess, what inspired her to move into the space to engage with mindfulness in her practice, and find out more about her background. So Aleema, welcome to the show. It is such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Nicki. It's such a pleasure to also be here and just have this other chat with you. I know we connected immediately when we were in the UK, so I'm so excited to also be here.
Yes, and I keep joking about the fact that poor Aleema coming over to do a TEDx talk, which is obviously an amazing achievement, but she managed to come to the UK in January, in probably the most coldest, bleakest period.
I did, and it's not like winter is my favorite month of the year, right? My favorite season of the year. I live in Kenya.
It has to be said, I was super jealous of you having an escape plan back to Kenya, to be fair. I was always tempted to jump on the plane with you. I guess the first thing I wanted to touch on was just to find out a little bit more about mindfulness and your work, how what it was that inspired you to start on this path and to work with people around being more present, being more centered in their everyday lives.
Yeah, so for me, mindfulness was a discovery. It kind of just happened. So I'll give you, I'll take you back about 3 years ago. So I lost my dad 3 years ago. And for that first year of him not being around, it was one of the most difficult periods of my life. I had my baby girl, she was only 4 months old. And trying to just do things with her was a massive effort. And if you ask me today, how much do you remember about that first year? I will honestly say, you know what? I don't think I remember much. The only thing I do remember is the routine that went into looking after a young child. And then a year after Dad's accident, I flew to the site. So he passed away in a plane crash in Ethiopia. So when I traveled to Ethiopia in that first year for the first year anniversary, I found myself at the site where Dad's plane had crashed. And that is where I can honestly say I experienced something I hadn't experienced for that whole year. And, it's being in the mountains, being in the desert, and just looking around and finding this sudden sense of peace and calmness and serenity. I mean, all the pain and suffering and sadness that I had experienced in that first year suddenly just vanished. It was incredible. It's like I had fallen into this space that all you could feel in that space was this deep sense of just peace and happiness. And it lasted for, I think it lasted for just a few moments or a few seconds, but it gave me hope that, I can still find happiness somehow. So what I did after that is I started to dig deep, like, what is it that happened to me in Ethiopia? And eventually I found out that I had literally discovered the present moment, which sounds a little bit, insane. But when you think about it, we're never really living in the moment. For that first year, I relived the day he passed away. The whole year, my mind was just constantly stuck on that. Or if it wasn't, it was stuck on the fact that he would never enjoy being a grandfather, and my daughter would never really enjoy knowing her grandfather. I was never really present in what was happening now until that day in Ethiopia. And then after that, as I continued to look into, that experience, I discovered it was mindfulness, and I started to practice a lot more of it. And for me, it was healing. I started to heal from it. And I want to say that the outdoors had a lot to do with it, because I feel like it was because of the outdoors that I fell into that space. And I'm a person that has been, as you know as well, I've been connected to the outdoors since I was a young child, and adventures always call out to me. And I know that played a major, major role in helping me fall into that space. And eventually I said, you know what? If I can do this for me, I know I can help so many others. And I became a teacher in mindfulness. I'm teaching my daughter now, to practice how to be present. And it's just doing wonders, not just for myself, but even for the people around me. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating. I mean, I can only, I can't even imagine what a painful experience you must have gone through. And I'm really grateful for you sharing it so openly as well, because I can imagine that that's not something that is easy to do necessarily, but that to be able to make that transition and find a way that helps you, but then to be able to transfer that to helping other people, I think is incredibly powerful. And I'm just wondering, when you're working with your clients, and I know you do some work around grief, but also working with clients who are experiencing challenges in all different areas of their lives. I mean, what are some of the, I suppose, not necessarily the challenges that the clients bring to you, but those moments where you've seen that mindfulness, or that your experience of it and what you are helping them to connect with, has really helped?
It helps them to really stop thinking about what could have been, because they begin to understand that, or they begin to accept. And I think that's key. They begin to accept that, I can't change the past. This has happened. There's nothing I can do about it. And they begin to loosen their grip on that story that they're telling themselves over and over again, that, this relationship, I wish it had worked out. And what if I had done this before? Or what if I had done things differently? Or maybe maybe I didn't put enough effort into this, for example. And it's not just relationship, obviously, right? It's in career and maybe your own health, etc. And when I work with them, they start to understand that, okay, even if I say, what if I had done better? I can't do anything about it now. Sorry, I can't change that. But what I can do right now is to say, or tell myself that it's a different story. That it's not a, what if I could have done it better? But you know what? I did my best in that situation. And once they start to see it from that perspective, things now, that's their aha moment. It's like, oh, yeah, of course, that makes sense. And I like to use, I use this image of, there's a really cool image of a big elephant. I don't know if you've seen that image. So there's an elephant and there's people touching the elephant from different places, and they all describe it differently. It's just a matter of shifting perspectives. And that's what this practice helps them do, is to literally shift perspectives and pull away from the story that they've been telling themselves, and then have the option of creating a more empowering story, which is incredible.
No, I love that point you make about, giving them the option, because I think people can sometimes feel that, and I've certainly experienced this myself, that, this idea of mindfulness as a thing you do, and that it can feel quite prescriptive, as, if you do this, you will feel great. And if you don't do this, well, you're missing out on this huge thing and you must do it therefore. And I think whenever we're told as human beings naturally that we must do something, I think there's quite often people go, well, I'm not going to do it because it doesn't work for me. And, or I don't like it, or I don't want to sit still. And what I particularly, I'm not obviously speaking from experience here, but maybe. But what I love about your work is also how you combine it with being outdoors, being in nature, and also introducing people to, outdoor spaces who might not naturally sort of gravitate towards them or feel that is, a place for combining these different areas of their lives, I suppose. We're thinking about, well, how do I navigate this problem? The outdoors or nature is a space to do that. And I was just wondering sort of, one, how do you counter some of that resistance potentially, but also, and obviously, not necessarily saying you need to give away all your practice. So, because obviously this would be useful for me, but I guess I'm just intrigued, when you've come from such a unique perspective and such a lived perspective, that when people, encounter those barriers or when you take them outside and they're potentially hesitant about being in a space that's unfamiliar to them, what are some of the things that you find that they really benefit from?
I love that you bring that up, because a lot of my clients have actually said, you know what, I haven't been outside. I don't know how that's going to be. What do I wear? It's great. Just be comfortable. That's all you need. And every time I take them outside, so I try and do all my sessions outside. Of course, again, they have the option of, if you can't make it this day on a face-to-face, we can do it online. That's not a problem. But what they find is that, or what I find is that every time we go out, by the end of the session, there's that extra sense of calm that they themselves go, you know what? It's a very different session because it was quiet. For example, they just say it was quiet. It was peaceful. I was looking at the trees, or in this exercise that we did, I was just focused on this one sound and there was no other sound. And this happens every time. And what they don't realize is that when we go out in nature, we've removed so much stimulus that they're normally bombarded with. In our day-to-day, we're constantly bombarded with, visual stimulus, auditory stimulus, like this constantly things hitting us, and we don't realize it because we're just living day to day, right? That's part of our life. But the moment you go outdoors, you've cut out on a lot of junk that you're getting. and I've had the same clients do an online session, and I've had the same clients go outside and they're like, I don't want to do any more online sessions. Can we just stick to the outside? Even the ones who don't normally go outside, which is the beauty about this whole thing. And of course, we have great weather here, so we can do this all the time. Sorry, I had to throw it in there.
As I say, don't rub it in, it's fine. We're not jealous, honest. But yeah, I love that point you make about cutting out the junk. And, I've certainly experienced that when, even when you're doing Zoom sessions and, there's stuff around you, you're constantly surrounded by reminders of things that have happened or things that you must do. And I think there's something, certainly where I know that being outside helps me is getting rid of all the reminders of what I must do or what I should be doing or what I haven't done or, what I did last week. Yes. And brings you to that space quite naturally. So, and I think in a way that resistance maybe starts to disappear as well, just because you're not being bombarded by it. I guess I was just sort of thinking, sort of looking forward, and I suppose for you as well. I mean, how would you, I know you've got this connection with the outdoors and you use it with your work. I mean, how would you like to see that evolve and progress? Where do you see this, I suppose, from a work point of view and from a personal point of view? What's this opening up for you?
I think for me, it's from a work point of view, I feel like a lot of people have lost that connection to the outdoors because they just get busy with life. And I've come across, there's one of my clients who I'm working with recently. She used to go a lot outside, and now she doesn't. And I asked her, I'm like, why? She's like, I've just gotten so busy. And as we talk, as we continue the conversation, it's almost as if she's like, she stopped prioritizing it, even though she knows that just spending that hour or so outside would be so beneficial to her health. But it just stopped becoming a priority. And in my personal life, being outdoors is actually a priority. Like it's not something I will compromise on. If I need to compromise something, maybe I'll compromise on a meal or something, but not being on the outdoors because of what it's done for me and of what I'm seeing it do for other people that I work with. So work-wise, I'm hoping that this constant push of getting people outside is a realization for them to continue coming this, because they've had these sessions with me in the forest. They've seen the benefits of it. They've taken in the therapeutic aspects of it, and they can continue it. And the beauty about it, again, we live in Kenya. We have access to this everywhere. Literally, it's all around us. So let's take advantage of it. And the more people, spend the time outside and connect with nature, they start to understand that we need nature to survive as well. It's also for our own survival. And so I'm hoping that also increases the awareness of, respecting the environment, teaching the kids, because at the end of the day, that's the generation that, that's going to be leading us, right? So that's how I see the work progressing. And personally, for me, I'm hoping eventually to have maybe just a tree house or something somewhere.
Oh yes, a tree house. That would be incredible.
That would be amazing, right? Like
I
you have
want
a
a
forest
tree
on
house.
one
Yeah.
side, the ocean on the other side. I mean, what else do we need?
Oh my goodness.
Go
I'm so
completely
coming to
simple,
visit
live
your
in
tree
nature.
house.
Please do.
Oh, I love that idea of sort of building that space into the outdoors as well, in a way that is part of it. I think, I wanted to come back to your point around, how when we spend time outside, then that also enables us to then want to protect that space too, and that connection that we forge, because I think there's something interesting about how we connect with ourselves in those spaces, but how we connect with the environment or the world around us in a completely different way as well. It becomes, I think I was thinking of, I had a conversation with Maggie Fennell a few weeks ago, who obviously, I know you met doing the TEDx too. And I think her talk around how do we value the priceless? And I was just thinking that actually we start to value it when we appreciate it more, when it becomes something that we prioritize, something that we need. And, it becomes a much more holistic picture. How do you enable that connection, which is so important? I was just thinking, if somebody is listening to this and they think, actually, yeah, that sounds great. I'd really like to spend more time outside, but, for this reason or that reason, it's really hard for me to get out. I may not have access to beautiful green spaces. I may, I'm finding that the juggle between work and all the things that I need to do in my life it's just not enabling me to do that. I mean, how can people access that connection, do you think, in those circumstances? I mean, what's the one piece of advice you would give somebody?
So the biggest piece I would advice I want to give to people is actually, first of all, we will constantly be super busy, or at least use that as an excuse of not making the time to connect with the outdoors. So let's learn how to just let go of those excuses and just accept that that's what they are. Those are excuses, and take a moment to stop. Okay, stop. So I've used this acronym. I've been using it for the last few weeks, and it seems to come up in a lot of my conversations. So I'm going to let it come up now as well. S is for literally stop. T is for take a breath. So whatever it is that you're doing, just stop, take a breath, and then observe. So observe what is going on around you. And then at P, you are going to proceed. Now here, I want to add a little bit on how to proceed into the outdoors. Okay, if you don't have the green space, proceed by taking a step either outside of the building you're working in, or if you can't go outside because you live in England and there's horrible weather, just stop and look at the sky, for example. Begin to connect with the sky, because that is also a part of the outdoors. And the moment you look up, and you see whatever it is that you see, you suddenly, that automatically also kind of works with your brain, even on a wintry night. And it's incredible. On a cloudy night or a cloudy day, just looking up at the sky already starts to affect how you begin to feel, your thoughts, your feelings, and you start to come back into presence. I've just also given a lesson into mindfulness, just by the way. And you start to connect with yourself, right?
Yeah.
You connect with yourself, and that adventure of connecting to the outdoors starts. You can start that small. And what I want to say is, start small, take a small bite, and you'll want more of it. But stop first, like take that break, stop, and then proceed, go outside, look at the sky, look at it. Even if it's just looking at a tree and literally just taking the details in of the tree, of the leaf, the shape, the different shades of the tree, that will already start your own practice. It will help you slow down, and it will begin a small connection to nature, because I believe that we are made of nature. We as individuals, we share a heartbeat with nature. Our heartbeat and nature's heartbeat is the same. And the moment you allow some of that nature, some of the outside in, that heart inside you is going to want more of it. And you will find yourself actually, you know what? Finding that time that you didn't have, you will start to say, you know what? I can spend an extra 2 minutes outside. And there it is. That's how your adventure starts.
You know what I really loved in that, what you were saying there, was that bit, which I think is the bit that we often forget to do, which is your wonderful acronym STOP. Because I think we often try to get from the place of overwhelm or chaos or doing to the place of mindfulness, or, you know, being in this amazing space. And we forget to do that bit in between, which just opens it up, and then punish ourselves for not being able to do the mindfulness bit because, you know, our brain's still whizzing about the to-do. So yeah, I think there is something really powerful in just taking that bit in between, maybe to you know, just, you know, without wanting to take too much away from your wonderful TED talk, you know, creating that little bit of space for yourself. And I suppose that the one final question I want to ask you, which is not really in the standard questions I normally ask people, but I'm really interested to know, you know, sort of, we talked about your work in terms of, you know, how that develops, but if there was one adventure that you would want to go on, either, you know, locally close to you or further afield, whatever that looks like, what's the thing that you would love to do?
Gosh,
I put you on the spot here, so don't worry. You can have two things if you want, but just like not 100, because this podcast will go a really long time.
Oh dear.
but you can have like, what's the next thing in you think actually, and I suppose just to add slightly to the question, if you were, you know, thinking about the I don't like the term journey necessarily, but the sort of the evolution of where you've come to over the last few years, and now you look forward, you know, what's the one thing that you think actually that's something that now I would really like to experience?
So the one thing I know I want to experience, and I will at some point, is to actually climb with my daughter. So climb a mountain with my daughter. I mean, I have a climb coming up, hopefully in, you know, towards the end of the year. I want to go to Uganda, do the Ruwenzori mountains there. And then, but definitely do a climb. Now, I don't know which one in specific, but I really want to see myself peaking and summiting with my daughter in the next few years. I mean, she's only 3, so I'm not putting any pressure on her.
Well, if you do come back to the UK, we have got some quite low mountains here. So
okay, well there you go. I could start with the UK with her, right?
Exactly. before Mount Kenya.
Before Mount Kenya, exactly. But no, so that would be my next big adventure with her. Like, you know, that's a little bit further out in the future. But in terms of just immediate, like I said, I am hoping to do the Ruwenzori Mountains at some point this year. And the one thing that I've decided that I'm going to do for myself, and I've been doing it really well, is to literally explore and discover a new place every year. So it doesn't have to be a place outside of Kenya necessarily. And it's just literally, and you know, it like, especially in the last 2 years, COVID hasn't allowed people to travel outside their own country. So what are we left with? We're left with discovering what is within the country. And I'm sure every country around the world has, little gems of beauty that people haven't discovered. And personally, for me, I'm discovering so much more about Kenya than I have ever known. So much more. These hidden waterfalls, as you've seen, and these hills in the forest. It blows my mind. And I'm looking forward to doing this, on a consistent basis every single year, and just really having this continuous adventure coming to me all the time, or me going, to the adventure. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I think, and it really does touch, I think, so much of our experiences, globally over the last couple of years around how we have had to look more locally, but not stopping at the point at which we can start expanding outwards again, actually going, there is so much more to discover, so close to us too. And that, I guess, ties back into your point earlier around, starting small, looking for ways in which you can access, the outdoors or outdoor spaces in a really, in a really accessible way, in a really easy to navigate way.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be huge, but it can still feel like that. Aleema, that's been so amazing. Thank you. If people want to find out more about you, more about your work, where can they go?
So I have my website. It's www.idaretoexplore.com.
I love the name, by the way.
It's befitting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm also on Instagram as Aleema Noormohamed, at Aleema Noormohamed. And actually, even on Facebook, I'm at I Dare to Explore. So it's between the two, I Dare to Explore and Aleema Noormohamed. So there we go.
Amazing. Well, I'll pop all of those links in the show notes as well, so people can go out and find you and find out more about your work. Okay. Thank you once again. It's been so wonderful to talk to you. Could have kept going for ages, but and obviously I could have given you the space clearly for your 100 adventures that you wanted to list. But
yes, maybe we'll do a few more podcasts to get to 100, right?
Exactly. It just opens up some space to come back to. That's all. But thank you once again. It's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you. And I wish you all the very best with what you're doing. It sounds incredibly powerful, and I'm sure so many people will benefit from it. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So a huge thank you to Aleema for coming on the show and for sharing her story and her journey with such honesty and such clarity. I loved speaking to Aleema. And one of the things that she was talking about really resonated with me. I mean, all of it resonated with me, but I think the point she made around stopping, about being able to just pause, and this idea that we can stop and take time out of the doing to just be. And obviously for anybody who's practiced mindfulness, this is always a bit of a goal, but I think it's also this idea that within our day-to-day lives, there is room for a pause. There's room to stop, even if we're not actively then practicing, okay, I'm now going to go and do some mindfulness, or I'm going to go and do this session, or whatever it is, that we can take that time for ourselves when we are feeling overwhelmed or bombarded, and we can insert a stop. And what I find so interesting is actually it is usually the point at which we most need to stop that we find it hardest to do so. When we've got feeling overwhelmed with all of the things on our to-do list, and we just need to keep going through, we feel like we need to keep going through them and get to the end of them. But actually we're finding it really hard because there's just so much to do, and our attention is diverted and is going all over the place. But actually, by stopping, by taking a moment, whether it's moving away from the desk or the computer, going for a walk outside, just taking a few deep breaths, actually can be the most helpful thing for our state of mind, our productivity, for what we're trying to achieve, but also just for how we are feeling in that moment. And that simple stop can be so powerful. And, thank you to Aleema as well for bringing it back to my attention. And I'd love to know what you think, whether it's something that is useful for you, whether it's something that you use actively, in the way in which you go about your daily tasks, just finding that space just to pause and have a moment, whether it's reflection or just being. Anyway, love to know what you think, as always. So please do reach out and get in touch. You can find me on Instagram, Resilience at Work. You can find me on Facebook, The Everyday Adventure Club, or Resilience at Work. You can reach out to me via my website, resiliencework.co.uk, or you can drop me a message or get in touch via LinkedIn. I'm Nicki Bass. So if you have enjoyed the podcast, if you are enjoying this season, if you've enjoyed previous seasons, I would absolutely love it if you wouldn't mind dropping me a review, leaving me a review on your favorite platform, letting me know what you think. It's always wonderful to hear your thoughts and opinions, and I really do appreciate every single one. So thank you. And otherwise, gosh, what's this? Episode 8. So we're almost done for this season. 2 more episodes to go. And those will be dropping really shortly. So in the next few weeks, we will be bringing you the last 2 episodes of the season. And they are really worth waiting for. 2 fantastic guests. I really can't wait to share them with you. So please do keep an eye on social media, and I will let you know as soon as they drop. In the meantime, take care. Have a fantastic week. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Bye.